This introduces the completion of the meiotic division of the secondary oocyte. The secondary meiotic division is also unequal and results in the formation of second polar body and a haploid ovum, which is known as oocyte. Since the haploid nucleus of the sperms and that of the ovum fuses together to form a diploid zygote. Diploid zygote. How many chromosomes will there be in the zygote? One has to remember that the sex of the baby has to be decided at this stage itself. Let us see how. As you know that the chromosome pattern in the female is XX and in the male is XY. Therefore, all the haploids ova are produced by the females have the sex chromosome X, whereas in the male sperms the sex chromosome would carry X or Y, and hence 50% of the sperms carried the X chromosome, while the other 50% carry the Y chromosomes. After fusion of the male and the female gamete of the zygote would carry both either XX or XY, depending on the whether the sperm carrying X and the Y fertilized with the ovum. The zygote carrying XX will develop into the female, and the baby carrying with XY would result in the formation of male. You will learn more about the chromosomal pattern in chapter 5. That is why scientifically it is correct to say that the sex of the baby is determined by the father, not by the mother. The meiotic division starts at the zygote, moves through the isthmus of the oviduct called cleavage towards the uterus, and forms 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells called as blastomeres. The embryo with 8 to 16 the embryo with 8 to 16 blastomere is called a morula. The morula continues to divide and transforms into blastocyst. As it moves further into the uterus, the blastomeres in the blastocyst arranged in so an which is and arranged into and so outer layer called trophoblast, and the inner group of cells attached to the trophoblast is known as inner cell mass. The trophoblast layer then get attached to the endometrium, and the inner cell mass get differentiated as the embryo. After attachment, the uterine cells divide rapidly and combust the blastocyst. As a result, blastocysts become embedded in the endometrium of the uterus. This is also known as implantation and leads to the pregnancy and embryonic development. After implantation, finger-like projection appears on the trophoblast called the chronic villi, which are surrounded by the uterine tissue and the maternal blood. The chronic villi and the uterine tissue become integrated with each other and jointly forms a structural and functional unit between the developing embryo, which is also known as fetus, and the maternal body known as placenta. The placenta facilitates the supply of oxygen, nutrient to the embryo, and also the removal of carbon dioxide and excretory waste materials produced by the embryo. The placenta is connected to the embryo through the umbilical cord. Placenta is connected to the embryo through umbilical cord, which helps in the transport of substances to and from the embryo. Placenta also acts as an endocrine tissue and produces several hormones like human chronicogonnadotropin (HCG), human placental lactogen, estrogen, and progesterone etc. In the later phase of pregnancy, a hormone called relaxin is also secreted by the ovary. Let us remember the HCl, HPL, and relaxin are produced in women only during pregnancy. In addition, during pregnancy, the level of other hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, and thyroxine etc. are increased several folds in the maternal blood. Increased production of these hormones is essential for the supporting the fetal growth, metabolic changes in the mother, and maintenance of pregnancy. Immediately after implantation, the inner cell mass embryo differentiate into the outer layer called ectoderm, inner layer known as endoderm, and a mesoderm soon appears between the ectoderm and the endoderm. These three layers give rise to all tissue organ in adults. It needs to be mentioned here that the inner cell mass contains certain cells called stem cells, known as stem cells, which have the potential to give rise all the tissue and organs. What are the major features of embryonic development at various months of pregnancy? The human pregnancy will last about 9 months. Do you know how many months pregnancy lasts in dogs, elephant, cats? Find out. In human beings, after 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo heart is formed. After 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo's heart is formed. The first sign of growing fetus may be noticed by the listening of the heart beat sound carefully through the stethoscope. By the end of second month of pregnancy, the fetus develops limbs and the digits. Digits here refers to the fingers. By the end of 12-week first trimester, most of the major organ systems are formed. For example, the limbs and the external genitalia organ are well developed. The first movement of the fetus and appearance of hair on the head are usually observed during the fifth month. Hair and the on the head is during fifth month. After 24 month, end of second trimester, the body is covered with fine hairs. Eyelid separates. Eyelashes are formed by the end of 9 months if the fetus is fully developed and ready for delivery. Parturition and lactation. The average duration of human pregnancy is about 9 months, which is also known as gestation period. The vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causing the expulsion and delivery of the fetus. This process of delivery of the fetus, childbirth, is known as parturition. Parturition is induced by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism. This the singular for parturition originates from the fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induce mild contraction called fetal ejection reflex. This trigger releases the oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. The oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles and causes a strong uterine contraction, which in turn stimulates further secretion of oxytocin. The stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretion continue, resulting in stronger and a stronger contraction. This leads to the expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal, which is known as parturition. Soon after the infant is delivered, the placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. The mammary gland of the female undergo differentiation during the pregnancy and starts producing milk towards the end of the pregnancy by the process of lactation. This helps the mother in feeding the newborn baby. The milk produced during the initial few days of lactation is known as colostrum, which contains a high level of antibodies absolutely essential to develop resistance for the newborn baby. Breastfeeding during the initial period of infant growth is recommended by doctor for bringing up a healthy baby. Now the summary will be discussed in the later part of another video. So for now it's there. So if you like this, please like the session, and if you have any comment, drop it below.